like to welcome everyone back to a brand new episode of the OurView Podcast, where we aim to educate, raise awareness, and change the tone of conversation about disabilities. I am happy to welcome my first guest for the season, Lolita Milena. Thank you for joining me today. I really appreciate you taking the time out to, join me today and to share your story and to share with everyone all of the amazing things that you're doing.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes. So, can you start off by sharing with us who you are? Tell us a little bit about Lolita.
Well, I was born in Siberia. I'm a first generation immigrant. I was brought to the United States by a foster family with the intent to adopt. At the age of 2, I was left paralyzed by the foster father in an act of child abuse. And then I was immediately adopted by my current family. And I grew up with 8 sisters and a brother. Out of the 10 of us, 7 of us were. So I saw all different forms of life under one roof, which was never a dull moment in my family. I grew up with sisters who had all different forms of disabilities or disorders, from deaf, paralysis, you name it. I probably had it, but I learned a lot from them because I had, again, so many different types of people from all different aspects of human life under one roof, which was really interesting. I fell in love with the arts by bonding with my mother over old time films. I bonded with my father over learning anything and everything. He loved education and I loved absorbing all the information. And then I grew up to really, really love acting, writing, telling stories, creating stories, and bringing them to fruition, which was really, really fun to do even into my adulthood.
Wow, that's great. It's large families are always fun. Uh, I grew up with one sibling, and then I have some half siblings. My father had previous marriage before he married my mom. But my dad, he's one of 10, and my mom is one of 7. But my maternal grandmother is one of like 15.
I believe.
Yeah, so it's having a large family is really really great, and as you said, having the experiences that you've had with all of your siblings and just learning about different different lifestyles and different people, and it's all a good time. Um, so, if you are comfortable with sharing, can you share a little bit more about your story of how you acquired your disability?
Yes. So it was an act of child abuse from the foster father. The details, they all range from different versions of what he said versus what was like did happen leading up to it. I'm never gonna know, I think, fully, but I think it's best that it happened at so young of an age because I cannot miss what I don't remember. Hi, Luna. And so I grew up with my adopted parents are boomers, so I was raised very much so in a Gen X mentality and lifestyle growing up, especially with so many siblings who were far older than me. So growing up, we it was fair game. Didn't matter if you had a disability, didn't matter if you couldn't hear, if you couldn't walk. Sisters don't care. So I think that was best to grow up in an environment where everything was just so normal. It was just our version of normal. There was no, I don't want to say coddling, but there was no sheltering
Mhm.
to living life with disabilities. And I think that was probably the best case scenario for growing up with a disability, which was I never cared enough about it. I don't know how else to explain it. I just, yeah, I sit down all the time. I can't move my legs, it is what it is. That was kind of my
Yes.
motto growing up. It is what it is.
I I can relate to the as you said, your sisters, your siblings just didn't care. It was, you have a disability, and growing up with my sister, she's about 18 months older than I am, and we always just used to argue and fight and everything like like every other sibling pair would do. And it was funny. My mom would always say, one of these days he's using this wheelchair and he's using these crutches. He's going to be stronger than you. You
Yeah.
have to be careful. He's
And
going to hurt you. So it's I can definitely relate to that part of your story where my parents taught me I had to do things differently, but I could do things. So there wasn't any not too long of feeling bad for yourself. That was
I
not allowed too much.
whenever I go to physical therapy or see specialists, I think that also really helped because they also never did the whole pity thing, nor did they ever kind of try to do I call it the fake empathy or the empowerment. I don't know how else to really word it.
Uh-huh.
So just became so accustomed to the idea of making dark humor of it. That's kind of my whole thing. I I'm glad that I wasn't raised in a very sheltered environment. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? I was very, very grateful for that now being an adult.
Yes, I was just going to say it really helped out. It really helped me become the adult that I am
Yeah.
today. And again, to have, like you said, the therapist and everyone surrounding you to have that same, to be on the same page and say, like, okay, like, it's rough, but yeah, you can get through it. It is what it is, like you said. So it's really, it's great looking back now. Of course, sometimes when I was younger, I didn't appreciate it, but now as an adult and living in my own apartment and things like that and driving a car, it's really I can relate it back to those times when I was pushed a little harder than I wish I had been. And but it's
My mother said I was almost too bubbly as a child
ah
because
yeah.
I had, the occasional adult who would just be so forward and asking, why? And again, I had sisters who had no filter. I had sisters who had very dark humor, and I just kind of would parrot the material they gave me. And I would say, "Oh, I went skydiving. I didn't realize you needed a parachute. I swam with sharks. Turns out they weren't nurse sharks. What was another one that I would use for other children? That I didn't eat enough vegetables
Oh
as a
yes.
child. I didn't eat enough. Now I say that I skip leg day because I'm very lazy.
Ah. Yes, the vegetable one, that's really good. That's a fun one. Scary for children, I'm sure, but it's funny. Oh wow. So you mentioned your love of musical theater, and I love what you said about watching the old time movies with your mom and then your dad and his interests and gaining some things from him from both sides, from both of your parents. That was really great to hear. And as I do this podcast more often with guests, and as I've already shared with you here, seeing parallels between like my guests, the lives of my guests, and myself. So, like with my parents, my mom was more of into music. So, like my love of music comes from my mom. I can relate that back to my mom and my dad too. But my dad he was one of those people that just knew a little bit about everything. And it was just like, how?
I
Like, like, how do you know this? And I can remember sitting and watching Jeopardy with him as a kid, and he would just like run the whole board with the, yeah, he would run the whole board with the people. And it's like, how do you know this stuff? And then now, as a 42-year-old, every time I'm home at 7 p.m. here on the East Coast, I sit and watch Jeopardy. I'm like, oh gosh, like I'm turning
never
into my father.
the board.
Yes, I'm turning into my father. It's so funny. So you mentioned that you have a love of musical theater and you got your start there as an actress. So my question is to turn it a little light, the conversation a little more light, who would you say is your favorite character that you have played in a show and why?
I didn't get to play it in front of an audience, but I was the understudy for Tiger Lily in Peter Pan when I was younger. And my first moment for that was the girl wasn't there for a dress rehearsal. I don't know why she wasn't there. And so I'm rolling out and I didn't have her microphone attached to me because I couldn't find it, to be honest with you. I don't know where it went. And so I go to just say the line in front of just, the parents who are in the audience with their kids who are in the show and then the other actors. And in the our director knew that I didn't have the mic and thought that I wasn't going to say anything. So at the same time I said it, she said it, and everyone went, whoa. Scared everyone. And we both just kind of sat and stood there in silence thinking, well, that was funny. So that was my funniest moment, and it scared everyone, including myself.
Oh wow, that's great. I also love theater in general, and I live in New Jersey, so I love when I'm able to get into New York to see some shows and on Broadway. And one of my guests on a previous season, Ali Stroker, I had her as a guest on. Yeah, yeah. So she's great. She and I have become friends over the years. We have a mutual friend who introduced us a couple years ago. So it's really theater is great, and I'm happy to see people like yourself and Allie who have disabilities, physical disabilities that are out. And
Well, I don't sing.
no, but just to be out on the stage and to having these roles and just to see the representation is so important, I think. So it's I just thought that would be a fun question to ask, and I'm glad you answered it that way. That was funny.
Oh, it was
So
memorable.
yeah. So one of the things I recently saw you posting about was the Rolettes experience. It took place, I think, over the summer. We're
Yeah.
recording this in September now, which is so hard to believe. So, can you share a little bit about the Rolettes experience and um, tell us what does being a part of such a group with other disabled women and that whole experience, what does that mean to you, and how has it impacted your life?
It was funny because this was a long time coming, as in 3 years, because Chelsea was she the I think she found me first through TikTok, one of my dance videos. And so we became mutuals through Instagram because of that, because our TikTok DMs never work. So we became friends through that. And then I later found out her management found me probably a couple months later and said, look at her, she's so cool. So she was like, oh, I already know who she is. And I invited her to the Rolettes in 2020 but then 2020, and so I couldn't go, and they had to cancel it. And then 2021, I was invited, but I was away doing work
Oh.
with, I couldn't go to that. Then 2022, I had business things lined up for that film, and I could not go because they closed the same week. And so finally, she said, "Can you please just roll your ass over here already?" And so finally, I was able. So I I was I was nervous that I wasn't going to live up to obviously their expectations of me. Because I'm a very much introverted person. I don't mean to be, but going there and seeing them finally all in person, they're all just as lovely, if not more so in person. It was an interesting experience because I only grew up with my sister who's in a wheelchair. I had no other friends or people in my community. I live in a very small area, and it was different to wheel into a convention hall and just see a bunch of wheelchairs everywhere. It was crazy. And then seeing the little kids zoom past me, just
Mhm.
I swear I blinked I was back to when I was 6 or 7 years old, wheeling through Walmart with my mom through the aisles. It it was crazy. And I think it was just so interesting for me to see, again, these little kids were in wheelchairs that were to their size. I had never seen a wheelchair made for a kid. I had a
Mhm.
wheelchair that was adult size and I had to grow into it. I thought
Wow.
that was just so interesting to me to see how much things have progressed
Hmm.
for people who are either paralyzed or wheelchair bound at a young age. That was the most interesting thing for me to see. And I befriended a lot of people, some from Japan, some from Canada. I met people who were from Shanghai. I met people from all over the world. And I didn't know it was that big of a thing. I had
Wow.
no idea that this had this far of a net for people. And I thought that was so cool.
Wow. That's so great. I had a very brief conversation with Chelsea. I asked her to be on the podcast, and at the time, she said that she wasn't taking anything else on her plate. And then maybe a week or
Just
two after, well, a week or two after that, she made the announcement that she was pregnant. So I
Oh,
was like, oh, I said, oh, now it makes sense. I got it. But
and I think what, 7 months old now. She is quite a little character because she was there at the
yeah,
experience. And she'll walking on stage and you'll just hear, ah, more like not so much a child crying, it was more so, mom.
right.
It was really
Oh, that is so great. Yeah, it was just so funny because she said, "Oh, I wish you the best with your podcast, and I'm just not taking anything on, anything else on right now." And I was like, "Okay, I understand. I just, I know what you're doing is really cool." And she said, "Oh, yeah." And then it was like 2 weeks later, I said, "Oh my gosh, like that's so exciting. That's so great." But yeah, so I saw your post about that, and I just wanted to hear what your experience was. And it's really exciting to see so many things that are available for children and adults with disabilities at this time, because like I said, I'm 42. So when I was growing up, there were very limited things that were available, events and experiences for those with disabilities. So even the work I do outside of the work I do with the podcast, I work with an organization that builds inclusive playgrounds. So, that didn't exist at all. Like there was nothing that existed like that when I was, younger. So now we're helping to change that. So it's really exciting and encouraging to see that uh, things like the Rolettes experience are happening and growing by every year that they have the event.
oh, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah. So I want to get back into the world of the arts. So can you share with us who your favorite artist is? That can be music, movies, a writer, visual artist or painter. Um,
I would say it, I so when it comes to a lot of like artists and celebrities, I think the only one that would truly make me go is Meryl Streep.
oh yes.
I Meryl Streep, Harrison Ford, Tommy Lee Jones, who else did I grow up with? Ashley Judd, of course. Uh, all of those celebrity, because those were the people that my mom watched the most often
Uh-huh.
on TV and in movies. So I feel like those celebrities, since I watch them so often, it'd be so cool to see them in person and say, I love the River Wild and Mom and my like top five like favorite musical of all time.
You said Mamma Mia?
Yeah,
Yeah, that's great. That was a good movie. That was fun. It's a lot of fun. I
but any artist, um, even like in music, my mother played 50s, 60s, 70s music all day, every day. My father played folk music from Ireland, Scotland area, and Appalachian folk style music as well as musicals. So I
Great.
had all of that under one roof, which was a lot of fun. So
Wow.
for musical artists, I saw the Celtic Woman a couple years ago, and I
Hmm.
would love to see them again because they were by far the best concert I had ever been to was the
Wow.
Celtic Woman.
Wow. Yeah, I've heard, I haven't seen them, but I know people that have, and they say it's a really great show.
Oh, they're wonderful. And if Melinda on TikTok, she does that folk style music. I just saw her the other day at a concert,
Oh,
and she
wow.
is just as vocally talented. And I would not be surprised if one day she just said, "I joined the Celtic Woman," because she would right in.
So, what motivates you to get up in the morning? Are you driven by relationships, money, success, or what?
I,
You like coffee?
I iced coffee, yes. That I get that that sounds like a joke, but I'm very much serious.
Yes.
Girl, I'm a simple woman. I like iced coffee. I know I will have it in the morning. That's what wakes me up.
So, to wrap up our conversation,
Yeah.
can you share where people can find out more about you? Any websites or social media handles that you would like to mention?
You can find me on my primary social medias are TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Patreon, and they are all Lolita Milena. I tried to make it as simple as possible. Uh, so anyone can find me under Lolita Milena on all of those social media platforms.
That's great.
There was a
Yes. So thank you, Lolita, for joining me today for this conversation and for sharing your experience. I know that sometimes for people with disabilities, we are asked to share our stories, and it's not a comfortable situation to do. So I really appreciate you taking the time to share your story and your experiences. And everyone, please go follow Lolita on all those social media platforms. Uh, as I told you, I enjoy your content, and every now and then I'll catch your lives that you do, and on TikTok or. So it's really, it's great to meet you virtually, and I look forward to, our paths crossing again sometime in the future.
Thank you so much for having me. I had a lot of
Yes,
fun.
yeah, you're welcome.